nigga.
Did you see
How you
both?
doing? Well, firstly, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Cameron Adams, and I'm a senior journalism major at Jackson State University.
Word.
Yes, sir.
Good to meet you, Cameron.
Good to meet you as well. I'm also the editor-in-chief of my school newspaper, the Blue and White Flash.
Okay.
So I'll be asking you some questions really about this event today.
Okay.
So firstly, as the editor-in-chief of the Blue and White Flash, I want to give students, a platform for Black voices to be heard, similar to what you're doing with the Black Effect Podcast Network.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the importance of Black voices across the world and really just to you personally.
Well, I mean, most of the time that's how we learn, right? Like that's how we get information. Malcolm X once said, the person who controls the media controls the minds of the masses. And, it's like if we're going to have, these platforms or create these platforms, let's just make sure that, the right people are in positions to be heard. And it can go from everything from comedy to, mental health and mindfulness to, politics to sports. Like, there's so many different avenues and so many different, topics that we're into that we amplify with our voices. So for me, when it came to creating something like the Black Effect, that's what I wanted to do, because I love radio. I just know I wasn't going to own a cluster of radio stations, you know what I mean? And,
right.
And I love television, but I know I wasn't going to own a cluster of television networks. So I'm like, what is that thing that's now in next?
Right.
And it was podcasts. So I saw what everybody else was doing, growing their podcast networks and establishing their podcast networks, Salute to Bill Simmons at The Ringer and salute to, my man Chris Morrow at the Loudspeaker Network. Like, they all were developing these podcast networks. So I was like, there's really nobody out there with a focus on Black people. And,
right.
And there's really nobody out there focusing on the Black voice. Like,
right.
they don't get me wrong, they had podcasts that were hosted by Black people, but I'm talking about an entire entity to where if you was a person and you decided that, I want to hear, what a bunch of different Black people may be thinking, you can go to. And that's
right.
what I feel like the Black Effect is. Like, like I said, we cover so many different things and so many different spectrums, so many different topics. So that's what we're here for.
Yes, sir. That makes sense completely. Extremely appreciative for, taking the initiative for Black voices, because it's bigger than me and it's bigger than you.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole point of this.
And also, too, just to add on the point, it's like a lot of times in this podcast space, folks don't necessarily know how to make money.
Right.
So when you have a partner like I have with iHeart, who has a whole sales team, a lot of those podcasts that might have been getting hundreds of thousands of, listens or views, but necessarily weren't connecting the dots on the dollar amount, that's where we come into play, and also being that iHeart is the largest audio platform, a lot of these podcasts, you believe it or not, they were getting more views on YouTube than they were actual listenership in audio.
Right.
But the money is, when you got a podcast, is in the audio.
That makes sense.
So it's just like, having a company like iHeart that can amplify audio the way it knows how to do, it just made too much sense not to, create Black Effect and partner with the company I've been with for 13 years.
Right. So November 2022 is when the first Black Effect Podcast Network, a Thriller Possibility Summit, happened. Mm-hmm. So what were your thoughts going into it, and did it meet your expectations in terms of turnout and everything?
Yeah, I had no idea what the hell we were doing. Dolly Bishop, who's a good friend of mine, that's more like family. She's the president of the Black Effect Podcast Network. She went to Winston-Salem University, so she attended an HBCU. So she hit me one day and she's like, yo, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I want to do this event, Thriller Possibility Summit. It's going to be a networking event for HBCU students. I wish something like this existed when I was in college. It's her brainchild. And I'm like, yo, do your thing, And she was like, yo, got a sponsor. It's Nissan, Linnea at Nissan. She went to an HBCU, so she clearly understood the benefit of it. And so I remember coming here last year and not even knowing what the hell I was getting into. I just knew it was something with HBCUs and Black Effect and Nissan. But then when I saw what it actually was, when I saw, all the students that came and all the different panels that we had and, the impact it was having on the students, and even, months after the event, seeing students like Marcus and Tierra, because they was at the Black Effect Podcast Festival event that we did, like just seeing the impact that this event had on them, I'm like, yo, Dolly was right.
Right.
So that's why I always say God, therapy, and Black women is who I can attribute all my success to. because I just told you I didn't know what the hell this was.
Right.
You know what I mean? But Dolly, it was her brainchild. She put it together, and it's incredible.
That makes sense completely. Like, just everything to turn out. Like, I've never been to Nashville, and I never attended the summit before, but already I've learned, like, life lessons. Like, especially when you're talking about therapy. Like, that, I really resided with that, especially since I'm in the journalism field. It can be really taxing, mentally. So I'm definitely taking your advice, and I hope that all the students I came with, they reflect that as well.
Well, everything is mental, man. That's something that we learned, growing up, because, a lot of the rappers used to say that. We didn't know what it was back then. You know what I mean? When Left Eye used to be like, everything is mental. Or, even Wu-Tang, Rakim, they would always talk about everything, starting with your mind. And then you grow up and you start reading books like The Secret and, The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And, you're like, oh, your thoughts become things. Or The Law of Attraction, what you ultimately believe, you end up achieving, or what you ultimately believe you can conceive. So it's like you got to be very cognizant of your thoughts, and you got to be very cognizant of the energy that you put out there. And I think, man, the reason everything looks so destructive and miserable right now is because you have a bunch of destructive and miserable people with platforms, and people are tuning into a bunch of destructive and miserable people, and they're putting out a lot of bad energy. You know?
That makes sense completely. And I try to change the narrative even on my behalf, with writing, and then I also do videography, which brings me to my next question. I'm also part of an organization called Outspoken Arts Collective on campus, which highlights Black artists in terms of rappers, singers, visual artists, and all sorts of that. So with the Black Effect Podcast Network, you actually, like I said, you create a platform for Black artists. So what's next in terms of outside of podcasting? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I mean, I have a company with Audible, SBH Productions, me and Kevin Hart, and we do audio scripted content. I have books. I have a book imprint called Black Privilege Publishing with Simon & Schuster. And so, for me, it's all about IP, right? And so you don't know what that IP is going to turn into. Like, this audio IP now might be movies in the future. It might be TV shows in the future. It might be documentaries in the future. This book IP, same thing. Like, everything just has to start somewhere. So it's like, for me, my main focus with Black Effect is audio.
Right.
I do understand that there's a video component that needs to be established, but like a lot of our podcasts, especially the ones that we partnered with, already have that video component.
Right.
We help them to take their audio to the next level. Like, All the Smoke already has a video component.
Right.
85 South Show, they already have a video component. Horrible Decisions, they already have a video component. You know what I mean? So for us, it's just about constantly evolving that audio. But as far as like the IP is concerned, like, we got podcasts on the network right now that people are coming to us to asking, hey, can we get this on TV? Or can these two personalities be in this space? And the thing that makes me so happy about that is it's not the established podcast we partnered with. It's the podcast that we launched from the ground up. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away too much, but people that we launched from the ground up, other people are starting to look at that talent and say, hey, what can we turn this IP into? Like, I remember when the writer's strike happened, I remember telling everybody, like, yo, you remember when the last writer's strike happened? It was the rise of reality television. I remember telling everybody, now reality, the new unscripted content is coming from podcasts.
Right.
When you see, a Drink Champs or, Just Hilarious has her Reckless Discussions. When you see these people who have these platforms that they already created and they're just putting them out as content every week, right? That's what people are tuning into. So eventually, these platforms that are experiencing these writer strikes and these actor strikes, they're gonna have to come talk to those folks,
right?
Because the content is already there. And if you see, like, you look at somebody like 85 South Show when they came out with their Netflix special earlier this year, #1. So that's kind of proving what I'm saying correct. Like, these people are already creating the content, so go tap in with them,
right?
Instead of creating another reality TV show, go tap into these, unscripted podcasts.
Right, people who are being authentic with themselves.
Absolutely. So all of that will come with time. To answer your question, all of that will come with time.
I'm here for Jackson State, of course. So the Dean of Students have also gifted you some items.
Oh, word?
Yes, sir. So first of all, they have this bottle. Got your little water bottle.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Then they got you this hoodie. so you can rep Jackson State for the one time.
I rock with Jackson State.
Yes, sir. You can say that to the camera, please.
I rock with Jackson State, you know. Even though Deion's not there no more, I still like Jackson State.
Right.
Word. Thank
So
you,
we will be open to, making a collaboration. Anything. You coming on campus, we can definitely get that.
No,
together.
definitely. The Thrill of Possibility Summit is going to definitely be. It's going to definitely go on the road. Like, that was a great question that one of the young ladies asked us earlier. How are you going to touch those HBCUs that most people don't necessarily go out there and touch, because every HBCU sadly isn't represented here. Like, there's several, but it's not every single one. So
right.
How can we take what we're doing here and bring it to their doorstep? So that's they already talking about that.
Right, like you said, evolving.
I just heard Dolly and Amy from iHeart out there talking about it. Amy already had ideas on, this is what we could do. And I'm like, that's why you got a great team.
Right. Something that I learned is being the leader and editor-in-chief is that I'm not for the personal achievements. It's really about the staff that you build, because the staff is a reflection of you at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So how did you develop your staff? Like, how did you know that, okay, these people are going to elevate me and really better my vision?
Because most of my people that are in those positions are black women who were already doing that for me in my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So with like somebody like Dolly, Dolly been my friend forever, for a very, very long time. She's a family friend, that's family, right? So it's like, I know who she is. I've seen her work in other areas. So when I build something like Black Effect, like, Dolly, I want you to run this network for me. I want you to be the president of this network. Same way I was with Thrill of Possibility Summit, she was with Black Effect. I'm not really sure what this is, but I'll figure it out. But I knew that she had the skills to be able to do it because, number one, she's a great people's person, and she's fantastic with talent already. Like, she was Nick Cannon's assistant, and she was a producer on Wild 'N Out and an executive producer of other TV shows. So she already knows how to deal with talent. That's like the biggest part of this whole thing, right? Like, knowing how to deal with talent. That's why she was perfect for this position, And so her being president, she fills in the staff. Like, she hires everybody else.
Right.
Like, I'm hands off with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's people that you see on the staff, like Taylor, who I work with every day, and, Sim, who works with, Breakfast Club. Taylor works with Breakfast Club and Brilliant Idiots. But those are like people that I already knew, but they're great too. So it's like, yo, Dolly, maybe you should look at that person. Maybe you should look at that person. But most everybody else, that's all her.
Right.
So it's just like about putting the right person in the leadership role. When you put the right person in the leadership role and they actually have real power to where they can actually see, there she go right there. I'm talking about you when you walk in, that's how you know it's God. And they can make real decisions. That's how they build out a great team and a great staff. So I can't take credit for any of this. That's all her.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time deeply.
Yes,
Me
sir.
and Jackson State, on behalf of the school, I appreciate you and this whole event. So
Thank you, brother.
I'm going to thank everybody, especially you. I'm thanking you for this opportunity, and I will thank everybody down this hallway as well.
Thank you, King.
Yeah,
Appreciate you. That jacket, fine.
I appreciate you, man. If you come on campus, I'm definitely going to hook you up with
I
one.
got you.
So if I wanted to contact you, do I have to?
I can get you.
Yeah.
I can connect.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
No
We
problem.
definitely going to make our way to Jackson State.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother.
I'll just talk to you again
Yes, sir.
soon.
Appreciate you. Sheesh.